our annual student exhibition, is looking forward to welcoming our many communities and publics to this project that we've been working on for now a couple of years, I think. So we've been working on it steadily for a while. We can't wait to bring this museum presentation to each of you and to our communities. And before I talk a little bit about our two of our curators, Jodi and Brittany, I want to take a moment to express my thanks, and I'm only pausing to get up a PowerPoint slide, so give me 1 second. Let's see. Hopefully you can all see the screen. Jillian, can they? Okay, great, thanks Jillian. As you can see, projects like Taking Space, Contemporary Women Artists and the Politics of Scale, and all of our exhibitions and projects at PAFA really involve so many people and foundations and individuals. And so all of us in the museum and in development wanted to take a moment and recognize the community that came together to make this exhibition possible. You're all listed here. Some of you are on this call. We're very grateful to you. We're very excited about this exhibition, and we couldn't do it without your support. We also are very grateful for the support of our members, and we want to thank our members for joining us in all the things that we do in the museum, our exhibitions, our collecting, our public programs, visiting us with a mask on and practicing physical distancing and enjoying our galleries. We're very grateful for all that you do and your belief in the stories that we want to tell in our museum about American art. So thank you very much. I'm going to stop sharing. Okay, now we should be back together in our grid. Taking Space, Contemporary Women Artists and the Politics of Scale. I know that Brittany and Jodi are going to be saying a little bit more about the content of this exhibition, but I really just want to celebrate that is entirely drawn from our permanent collection. And there are not many museums, as you'll see from the works that they're going to share with you, that could put together this exhibition from their permanent collection. So this says a lot about who PAFA is, what PAFA values, and why we matter. And these are some of the reasons why I am terrifically excited to share this project with all of you tonight, but also when we open the show next month. It's co-organized by Jodi Throckmorton and Dr. Brittany Webb. I believe this is their first collaboration on the exhibition front. I'm getting some nods of agreement. So, and I think that that's something also to celebrate, that it's not every museum where curators want to work across departments and collaborate on projects. Our museum, and I'll include Dr. Anna O'Marley, who's also in this call, our three curators are pretty mighty, very collaborative, and very supportive of one another. And I think that that's something to acknowledge in our museum sector. And yes, they're all women doing these all women shows. And that's also something to acknowledge and celebrate tonight and when we open. I'm going to take a minute because Jodi probably doesn't even realize that this month is her 6-year anniversary at PAFA. I had to go to LinkedIn to find that out because she wouldn't tell me that herself, because she probably doesn't know, because she's probably not keeping track. I'm going to embarrass you a little bit, Jodi. Jodi's been with us for 6 years. She is currently working on 4 exhibitions that will be in our galleries in the future, 2 of which open next month, 1 of which we're talking about tonight. As our Curator of Contemporary Art, which isn't a position PAFA's had for very long, Jodi's very central to the stories that we're telling in our galleries, to the artwork that we're acquiring for our future. Because if you think about PAFA, it's always been a place where contemporary art is the central thing. And Jodi is creating that central argument and discourse around American art for our institution. We don't think of PAFA as a contemporary site because our historical collection, which Anna oversees, is so singular and important. And I would ask us to just acknowledge that what Jodi's doing is central to the mission as well. So thank you, Jodi. Dr. Brittany Webb joined PAFA 2 years ago after receiving her PhD at Temple University in anthropology. She was also coming to us from our peer institution, the African American Museum in Philadelphia. Now, as many of you know, as friends of PAFA, you certainly have met Brittany, who came to us as our curator of the John Rhoden Collection. As Jillian pointed out at the start of her very lovely opening remarks, over the summer, Brittany was promoted. It was the best thing I got to do this year so far. Brittany was promoted to our Evelyn and Will Kaplan Curator of 20th-Century Art and the John Rhoden Collection. So in 2020, Brittany has the verve and the ambition and the drive and the enthusiasm to take on 100 years when all of us are having a hard time taking on this 1 year. And we are all deeply excited to see what Brittany's going to do with the 20th century. So together, Brittany and Jodi have put together this project that I can't wait to hear about. And so I hand it over to the two of you, and thank you all for being with us tonight.
Thank you, Brooke. That was really lovely. We really appreciate it. And thank you all for being here. I'm looking around, and as far as I can see, I mean, maybe some behind these blank screens, but from what I can tell, I think we might actually all be women, or most be women in this group, which is also wonderful. So thank you all for being here tonight, or this afternoon, I guess. Brittany and I are deep into our thinking in this project, well, almost deep into installation of the project. We'll be starting in earnest next week to install the show. And it's really wonderful to give you a preview of what we'll be showing. There are about 50 artists in this exhibition, which is really incredible. And the list of names goes on and on, from Barbara Kruger to Clarity Haynes, who happens to be on with us tonight, to wonderful people like Deborah Willis, Ebony G. Patterson, Allison Schatz, and Jodeka Cooney-Crosby, and the list goes on and on. So we look forward to sharing with you all of these objects in person, which of course are always better than on slide. But tonight, what we thought we would do is talk a little bit about the development of the ideas for the project, but also touch on something that Brooke talked a bit about, with the fact that this is an exhibition pulled completely from our permanent collection, which was really part of the genesis of the idea. When we started talking about it, frankly, and I'm going to be very honest about how we talked about this, we were thinking, wow, we have a lot of really big things by women artists. And that was simply how it started. And then we started thinking about how, well, actually, there's a reason for that. And there's a way that women are using scale to make a political point of view, frankly, or political gesture. So we started thinking about all the different ways that manifests. So we'll get into some of those themes of the exhibition tonight, as well as talking a little bit about how collecting and what we've done over the last 5, over the last 10 and more years have really built to make this exhibition what it is. And frankly, some of you on this call or the Zoom meeting today also had a big effect on that, because you have given wonderful gifts to the museum, and which you'll see there's wonderful gifts that have made this possible. So we'll talk a little bit about the themes and the artists, and as well, Clarity has very, very kindly, because I put her on the spot, agreed to say a bit about her work and how it relates to taking space, because she's had really incredible things to say about the exhibition and her work. So with that, though, I will let Brittany kick us off.
Sure. Thanks, Jodi, and thank you all for coming. I thought I would talk a little bit about the framing for the exhibition. And so, you know, as Jodi said, we were thinking about work that is audacious in terms of the size of the work, but also in terms of scale and, you know, sort of chutzpah. And Jodi, if you could advance the slide, we were thinking with people like Amy Meredith Cox, who's an anthropologist who thinks about women in space, and so who urges us to think about the ways that space is gendered and also inflected by things like class and geography, race, ethnicity, and generation. And so she pushes us to remember that space can be impalpable, sustained by ideas, beliefs, and practices that define identities and establish invisible yet powerful boundaries. That space is everywhere. It surrounds us like air, and just as organically inhaling and exhaling, establishes the dynamic, expansive, and constricting context for life and death. And that's the sort of frame that we were using to think about what the approach to space might be, how we might think about space in terms of size, in terms of seriality, in terms of work that's dealing with the built environment, but also with people like Helen Molesworth, who in an essay on how to install art as a feminist is thinking about museums. And she asks us a series of really pointed questions like, how do we redress the incomplete history currently on view in most museums? And if art objects demand of their viewers various forms of competence for interpretation, what conditions of exhibition does a museum need to establish to create and satisfy those demands? And I think that's something that we're especially thinking about because this is a permanent collection show. She asks, is it a revolution of the deepest order to insert women artists back into rooms that have been structured by their very absence? What would it mean to take this absence as the very historical condition under which the work of women artists is both produced and understood, or in some cases misunderstood? And so that's also why we really love thinking with this Deborah Willis lithograph as a kind of lighthouse for our understanding the way we move through the exhibition around the work. So in this image, you have Deborah Willis in a self-portrait triptych in the first, actually, Jodi, if we could advance like 2 slides, I think maybe there's a larger image of, well, slightly larger. So in this piece, it's called I Made Space for a Good Man. And there are 3 self-portraits of Dr. Deborah Willis, who is currently the chair for the Tisch School of the Arts at New York University, and a kind of founding figure of Black photography history, but she's also an artist in her own right. Really kind of sired a field. And this is a piece that's printed at the Brandywine Workshop and Archives here in Philadelphia. That's based on this photo slide of her, these 3 images taken in late 1975, early 1976. And around the image, if you can't read it on your screens, it says, a woman taking space from a good man. You took the space from a good man over the second photo. And in the final photo where she's reclining nude and pregnant, I made space for a good man. And Dr. Willis talks about this being an image that she made when she was an undergrad here at the Philadelphia College of Art. And one of her professors told her while she was an art student that she was taking up a good man's space, that she shouldn't be in the art program, that all she was going to do was get married, have a baby, and that a good man could be in her seat. And so she was really embarrassed by that story at the time, but then looks back on it later at this point of her career where she did have a successful career in photography. She's an educator, a curator. She's written, I think, 20 books on the history of art. And in this image, she's pregnant with Hank Willis Thomas, who's another artist who's in PAFA's collection. And so there's a way she kind of reclaims this story that I made space for a good man, not just because she birthed an artist, but she also birthed a field of art. And it's really sort of amazing, I think, for us to think about what it is to have that experience that someone decided that she didn't even deserve to take up a seat in a classroom or a space in an arts program, that kind of really failure of imagination to see that a woman could be an art student, could dream about herself as having a life in the arts, that she deserved a place in a program, a place in a studio, a place in the art world. And that becomes a kind of way for us to think about all the work that's in this exhibition. If we can move to the next slide, I thought we could talk about how a lot of the work we're organizing around space is seriality. So artists who are working in a series or repetition as a way to make a particular kind of point. The space of the body, that's hugely important in the practice of artists overall, but certainly a lot of artists in this exhibition. And we're also thinking about the ambitious ways that artists are thinking about geography, both in terms of the natural environment, the built environment, sort of urban space and design and cities, and both like the space of the kinds of physical spaces in the world that people are sort of welcome to be in or locked out of, like a school or like an art studio or like a museum collection. And so I thought it would be good for us to like be a little inside baseball about how this show comes together. And so when we were looking at the checklist, one of the things that stands out to us about the ways that this show becomes possible at PAFA is that it's only recently that we could really be able to do this show. And I have to tip my hat to Jodi. I didn't realize we were coming up on your 6-year anniversary at PAFA. But of the nearly 60 works on this checklist, 4 were acquired in the 1980s, 3 in the 90s. There's a lovely mix of both purchases and gifts and a commission by Allison Schatz. But importantly, 33, over half of the artworks, have just entered the permanent collection since 2015. So we're just talking about even 5 years ago, it would not have been possible for us to do this show. And that's kind of like a moment to really think about the point that Helen Molesworth makes about how do we understand museums as spaces that have not kept women out by happenstance, but are structured by women's absence. And what kind of work does that require us to do in terms of how we collect the work, how we show and talk about the work, how we organize shows over the mix of loans and permanent collection shows that we do. What does it sort of push us to do as various people who love museums for a lot of reasons, to think about how do we really get revolutionary about what it might look like to have women present in museums, in art shows, the different rubrics for how we talk about the work and think about the work, how it shows up, how are we transparent to audiences about how this work comes to you on these walls. And so this sort of feels like a moment where we can celebrate work we're doing as we think about the work we want to do in the future, at the same time that we celebrate the space that these women take up in their work and in the art world. We're really proud of the space that they're going to be taking up in Fisher Brooks Gallery and in Tunnelman and in the permanent collection.
And part of, if I could just say a few things, because Brittany and I have had some interesting conversations around this recently, especially, is as we've been talking a lot about how it's taking space as an ecosystem, so to speak, as an art world ecosystem. Because certainly we've been lucky at PAFA over the last 5-6 years to have the resources to make some of these purchases, and that's certainly the curators and our collections committee agreeing to a collecting plan that's focused on certain areas that really think about women and people of color, for example, and making sure that we're getting these wonderful works in the collection. But it's also about, as I mentioned earlier, the gifts that are coming in. And frankly, I mean, what's amazing is that we were talking about these adventurous collectors, frankly, that we've had in our lives at PAFA, Linda Lee Alter being one of them, Ophelia Garcia. There's quite a few of you on the Zoom tonight that I won't embarrass, but thank you. Because we're lucky at PAFA to actually be involved with more adventurous collectors. And frankly, that's why we're able to do these shows that we're doing, like Taking Space, which some major museums are only now looking at these works, whereas, Linda Lee Alter gave us a piece 10-15 years ago. So thinking about how all of our work, curators, collectors, members, everything, it's part of that together, and how important that is, and ultimately what it does to support artists and to support the artists that get to, again, take up spaces in a studio, take up space in their lives professionally. This becomes their professional job, right? So it's all something that filters down and out, and has become something I think that's really, really quite important to us in the work that we're doing at PAFA.
Yeah, so I thought one of the things I wanted to point out, and I'm mindful of how much great work there is to get through. So, we have this incredible Alice Neal painting that this is work that was made in 1975. It was gifted to us in 2011 by Lee Alter. Jodi, if we could go to the next slide. We've got this great suite of prints by Judy Gellis, who is making work about what it is to be an artist who's a young mother. This really phenomenal work she's making in the 1970s that's a gift in the first image, where you have a young mother on a toilet. She says, "I would love to be able to go to the bathroom alone." Thinking about just the struggle to make work as a young woman, as a young mother, that this is what it looks like for her. And when we think about how often we tell artists to make work about what they know, what does a young woman artist know as a mother except about the difficulty of how to make work, how to find space, not just intellectual space to devote to your practice, but also the physical space when your beloved children are literally using your body as a jungle gym. And so this is sort of like a really lovely feminist moment that we have in the exhibition from work made in the late 70s that you can see came to us in 2017.
Well, and I just want to point out that this is one of Judy's first photographic series, which I think is quite incredible. And Christine Feister can confirm that. She's also on the call, and she introduced me to Judy's work, wonderful work. And so we were so lucky to acquire this piece, which has become a quick favorite. Motherhood is definitely a theme that's running through this exhibition, which is a whole nother idea of taking up space, I think.
We've got this incredible Audrey Flack, which is this sizable piece in the museum collection that is an homage, a tribute to a commentary on World War II that was painted in 1978, but came into the museum in 2017. And one of the things that I hope you're thinking about as I, throw out these dates, which is not something we typically talk about, is just the gap between when this early work is being made and when it's entering the collection. So far we're talking about work that was made in the 70s that came to us just in the past decade or so. And so we've been thinking about just that sort of time, and that how can we shrink the time between when an artist is making work, ambitious work that is important, and when it gets into museum collections, and how that's a particular structure of art history that has done short shrift to a lot of incredibly talented women artists.
And I think it's obvious for me to say that the 1970s were incredibly important for feminist art. But I do want to point out that artists like Audrey Flack, for example, were huge in bringing in, in continuing or pushing forward the importance of painting in the feminist art movement. Some of you may know that really a lot of it moved into video or performance, and there was an idea that painting was part of the patriarchal system and shouldn't be engaged with. But artists like Audrey Flack, went right there and went into photorealism from working abstractly in a more sort of abstract expressionist mode. And I do think that a lot of what they were doing at this time, when you look at how Audrey has exploded this still life to 96 by 96 inches, an inch painting, had a lot to do with inserting the importance of feminism, but inserting the importance of painting and what they were doing as well. And that's also a translation from abstract expressionism and the sort of macho lineage of dudes making big paintings, so to speak.
And so also thinking about abstract work, Louise Nevelson is known for being an incredibly talented sculptor whose work is really draws on the built environment and architecture in ways that are really moving and interesting. And so both of these works from 1972 and 82, we can see that she's being really ambitious about how much space her work takes up in a museum. She was responsible for these incredible room-size installations. And here we have this work made in black, this deep matte black, which is so impressive. I hope everyone gets a chance to see it in person. South Floral on the left feels like a piece that you could crawl into. Cascades Perpendiculars is part of a series that she made in homage to the destruction of a church fire in New York, St. Mark's Church on the Bowery. And she really kind of reclaimed these pieces of the church organ that were destroyed in this fire that they allowed her to have access to, and sort of reshapes them in her mind to be parts of the structure. So if you look at this piece kind of closely, you can see that parts of it feel like the inside of a church organ. And there's a way that the piece feels, the whole series, but this piece in particular feels like a kind of phoenix that rises from the ashes of this church fire and becomes this incredibly beautiful thing, which is like a really intellectually rigorous take on like a tragic story that becomes the impulse to make this ambitious, geographic, architectural, impressive work.
This is a brand new piece, very brand new, acquired, gosh, was it this summer? Again, we're confused with dates. Yes, it was acquired this summer. In fact, please forgive us, but this is actually a photo from the print studio. So you'll see it's hanging by clips above, but I was very lucky to get to watch them print this. And it's a work by Polly Applebaum, who grew up near Philadelphia, actually, and was really influenced by the Pennsylvanian German Dutch culture around. In her home, her mother had decorations all over. So she's actually making a large body of work right now about this. And she made this monumental 79 by 79 inch print. Each one is actually unique. It's a wood block, with each block being printed with each sort of horizontal block. So they're divided into maybe 5 or 6 horizontal blocks, and each one is printed individually, colored individually, and printed individually. So it's a monumental print, which some of you may know her sculptures, which she does, on the floor. Some are made of textile. She often takes up a lot of space in her exhibition. So when I saw this very monumental print, I was excited to bring it in so that we could put it in the exhibition. And it's based, the title, There Are Many Hearts, is based on a poem that she found from her aunt to her mother and her mother's papers. So. Do you want me to take this one? I love this one too. I get so excited. Okay.
Yeah, sure.
Winifred Lutz is a beloved Philadelphia artist. We were incredibly lucky that she approached us about donating a piece to the collection. And so it's a sculpture, what you're seeing, so I can give you some sort of an idea. It comes off the wall, and that beautiful shadow is a large part of the piece, and the way it interacts with the light. And what you see in the front is handmade paper. So you have these beautiful moments of her fingerprints are apparent on this homemade paper that she made. And part of one of the themes that runs through the exhibition is thinking about the space and body. And we have a few pieces that are in the same section with this piece, and we think are going to go quite lovely. Artists who use their body weight in clay and scrape and carve out of it. There's also a piece we're very lucky to have a photograph by Ana Mendieta, thinking about earthworks and how that's related to women's bodies. And so Winifred's work, we think, will be beautiful in that space. Do I get this one too? Okay, good. This is also a very recent acquisition. This is, I think, this summer as well.
Yes, we have a lot of new acquisitions at the top. We're happy to debut a lot of work that no one will have seen before, and that actually we have not seen in our galleries before. And so this is a bit of a insider sneak preview for members.
That's right. Yeah, this is a work by Diani Whitehawk, who's based in Minneapolis. It's called She Gives Quiet Strength, and it's part of a series that Diani did. This is a painting, acrylic on canvas, if you can see, because it does look like beadwork. But she did a whole series based on elevating or bringing forward into the art world traditional native arts. Diani's indigenous, and she is interested in showing how women's work, how native beadwork, for example, is just as beautiful, is just as deserving of being in museum spaces and fine art spaces as anything else, as well as also drawing attention to the fact that, a lot of those, we talk about essentially, people discovering abstraction, right? We think in the 20th century, or even now, maybe a little earlier in the 19th century. But Diani very clearly makes the point that actually abstraction was happening a long time before these sort of fine artists, painters came in through the work of these indigenous artists.
This Marie Watt Skywalker Skyscraper is another work by an Indigenous artist. And this is actually a tribute to Iroquois workers in New York who were the crucial laborers who built a lot of the buildings that are iconic in the New York City skyline, buildings like 30 Rockefeller Center, the Empire State Building. These are not typically massive architectural works that we associate with Indigenous labor. And Marie Watt is really reclaiming that in this piece, where that's the impetus behind the work. And she was inspired to do it when she was working a residency in parts of New York and Cobble Hill, where she was looking at these buildings and thinking about who was doing the work. And they were called skywalkers because they built these skyscrapers by literally walking the iron. And so there are these incredible archival photos of these men standing on these iron scaffolds that form the basic structure of the building, carrying these massive iron bars that were like literally constructing with their bodies, hundreds, sometimes 1,000 feet into the air, not all the time working with harnesses. And so this is sort of left out of our story of who we imagine built New York City, is responsible for the iconic architectural skylines of the great American city. New York City is an architectural marvel, and we don't tend to think of Iroquois workers as being people who are responsible for that. And so Marie Watt's tribute to them is made of these reclaimed wool blankets. And so you can see that the piece is meant to be installed so that it looks like a sun rising or setting along the horizon line in a room. But also is recalling the importance of the materiality of blankets, both as a treasured object that is exchanged among Indigenous communities that carry a lot of symbolism in addition to the value of their use. And then have the storied history associated with settler colonialism as being used as a tool for a biological weapons against Indigenous communities. You know, these stories of various settler generals trying to infect people with disease by using blankets. There's this kind of double-edged nature of the material. There's also like a really lovely juxtaposition between the strength, the hardness of architecture and iron, and something as soft like a wool blanket or a satin blanket that come together in ways that we think are really interesting and intellectually ambitious.
And we wanted to end here with Clarity, and I can't quite see you, Clarity, but hopefully you'll unmute yourself and pop up, because I'm hoping that you will tell the really lovely story about Janie and this series of work that you're making. And just to note, I mean, I think Clarity is one of the artists that actually we've started to collect pretty deeply. We have Clarity's a PAFA alum, so we have a wonderful triptych by her in the collection. That was donated to us. We also have a drawing, and now as of this summer we have this incredible painting, really I think one of Clarity's major works. So Clarity, if you wouldn't mind just telling us a little bit about Janie's story, I'd really appreciate it.
Absolutely. I am so honored to be in this amazing show, and I can't wait to see it. Janie, first I just want to say, unfortunately she passed away last year of ovarian cancer. But she modeled for me over a period of several years, and I have all my models right after they pose, and Janie wrote a couple of times in the books throughout the years that she posed, and the first time she wrote a sort of a poem just off the top of her head, and the last 3 lines were, "I was here, I took up space, I was somebody." And so I really felt like what she had to say related so much to the theme of this show. And this painting is 58 inches tall. So the figure is larger than life. And I think about scale a lot, and how, like, when you're a person standing in front of a body that's larger than life, speaking of motherhood, one potential connection there is that you are then put in the position of being almost as if you're an infant in front of this larger body. So that's just one of the many ways I like to think about what scale does when you're working with the body.
And I think is it okay? Jillian, are we on time to open it up for questions? Is that what you're thinking? Great. And in fact, I haven't been checking my chat, but I'm happy to see if there's any questions in there.
Yes, thank you,
Okay.
Brittany and Jodi and Clarity. This is wonderful. So just a reminder, if anyone has any perfect. If anyone has any questions, feel free to raise your hand or drop it in the chat. Or if you really just want to jump in and unmute yourself, you're welcome to do so.
Well, if I could jump in, I have Clarity. I know you're our guest tonight, but could I ask you to say something about being an artist and working in scale? Because here we are with this exhibition and with the season that it will be on view, thinking a lot about large work, the conceptual idea of largeness and taking space, as Jodi and Brittany have entitled the project. And I recognize in your studio practice that there are times when you work, you know, really modestly, like smaller than the size of a notepad for the audience here, and then other times really larger than life. And I guess I'm wanting to hear from an artist about the decision to work in scale.
Yeah.
It's not just a passing thought. It's a big decision to go big.
Absolutely. One of the things behind my thinking actually was thinking about safety and public space, actually. I've experienced a lot of street harassment in my life, and you know, that was part of the impetus for me starting to do torso portraits, was sort of healing from some of that, the experiences that I had growing up. And you know, I was unfortunately attacked on the street when I was in graduate school in New York, and it all turned out okay, but it was very scary. It was right after that I really started to think that making them larger was a way of making them invulnerable, or trying to make them invulnerable. Like, the person looking at it could never feel like they could dominate the figure.
Thank you.
Wonderful. That was such an interesting perspective, Clarity. Does anyone else have any further questions for Jodi or Brooke or Brittany? All right. Well, thank you all so much for coming. As an FYI, this has been recorded, so it'll be up on the website probably in the next few weeks. If anyone missed it and wants to watch, we are happy to send a note around with the link. Thank you, Jodi. Thank you, Brittany. Thank you, Brooke. And thank you all for attending. This was wonderful.
Yes, thanks everyone. Can't wait to see you in our galleries. Come visit.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sandy.
Thank you.
Katie, it's good to see everybody on the call.
Thank you so much for the support.
Hi, Christine. Thanks.
Hi. Hello. Thank you so much. And we
Thank
look forward to access the exhibition in person. Bye.
Bye.
So fascinating, everyone, that this was a specifically gender audience with a few exceptions, sir.